The alien woman was afraid to mate with an Earthling until she met the human man. The moons of Ephyra pulsed low in the sky, twin lanterns smeared across the lilac dusk. Drayla adjusted the interface lenses clamped over her pupils and swiped through the floating genetic models spiraling in front of her. The DNA strand she was analyzing was Earth Standard, Class B mutant lineage, with the usual Terran defects, irrationality, romantic impulsiveness, and her brows twitched, unregulated tear ducts. Pathetic, she muttered, watching a simulation of an Earth male sobbing while holding a crumpled flower. His own DNA destabilized just because someone told him she needed space. It's not even vacuum-related. A small droid hovered to her side and beeped twice. It was Egg, the lab assistant she'd designed herself, short for EGB7, Enhanced Gene Bot, but Drayla often forgot the acronym and told people it stood for Extremely Grumpy Ball. Another crash report, Egg said, its voice clipped and slightly nasal, thanks to Drayla's experiment in giving machines sinus. Quadrant 14, Marsh Sector. Looks like a shuttle. Organic signatures on board. Probability of being Earth origin is... Let me guess, Drayla interrupted, pulling her gloves tighter. 100%? 97, Egg replied. The other 3% accounts for the chance that it's an intelligent gelatinous species pretending to be human. Drayla rolled her eyes. Those are still better conversationalists. Minutes later, she was standing ankle-deep in glowing blue kelp, the marsh around her chittering with night insects that had absolutely no business being that loud. The shuttle lay sideways like a dented can, half submerged and steaming. She activated her bioscanner. The heat signature inside the wreck was humanoid. "Please be unconscious," she whispered, stepping toward the shuttle. The hatch hissed open with a groan like a grumpy elder. Inside, a man slumped against the bulkhead, helmet cracked, jumpsuit torn at the thigh. He groaned and blinked up at her with brown eyes that clearly had no comprehension of his impending incineration. "Oh good," he said hoarsely. "You're either the rescue crew or a very fashion-forward hallucination." Drayla stared. "You're alive." He coughed and tried to sit up. "That's what my organs keep telling me, but they've lied before." She considered calling the retrieval unit, but the curiosity itched at the base of her skull. Earthling. Here. Breathing. Not dissolving into a puddle. Yet. She reached down and poked his shoulder. "Hey," he said, wincing, "that's where I keep my dislocated bits." "You don't appear infected with anything immediate," she noted. "Unless sarcasm counts." "Oh, it's terminal," he said, flashing a crooked smile. "Name's Orion Black. I was doing a routine survey near this sector and hit some kind of ion pocket. Everything fried, including my dignity." "Which you clearly packed light," she replied. He snorted. "Are you in charge here?" "I'm in charge everywhere I stand," she said, tapping her wristband. A translucent sphere enveloped them, lifting them from the muck and into the air, toward the spires of her research dome. Okay, Orion muttered as they rose. "Not a hallucination, unless I'm dreaming of being abducted by a space elf." "I am nada," she stopped herself. "Don't say elf." "Got it. Very tall, glowing-eared, not an elf," he said. "Just FYI, if I start leaking fluids, that's probably internal bleeding." "Thanks for the warning," Drayla said. "I'll make sure to collect a sample." Her lab dome loomed above them, its crystalline walls refracting starlight into symmetrical fractals. Inside, it was all sharp glass tables, suspended displays, and rows of preserved tissues floating in nutrient gel. Drayla laid Orion on the diagnostic platform and stepped back. Egg hovered in, extending a probe. "I'm allergic to needles," Orion said, eyeing the probe. "You're not allergic," Drayla said. "You're just a coward." "Same thing," he muttered. His vitals flickered across the screen. Heart rate erratic, neural activity elevated, DNA intact, surprisingly. She frowned. "No obvious defects," she murmured. "Thanks, I moisturize," he said, grinning weakly. She arched a brow. "Your blood pressure suggests you're either dying or you've fallen in love with a ceiling light." "I'm not dead yet," he said, "and that light's got great angles." Drayla turned away, resisting the urge to smile. This was why Earthlings were dangerous. They wormed their way past logic and protocol. She'd barely known him 10 minutes and already her lab felt louder. "You'll remain here under observation," she announced. "Any attempt to leave will trigger a containment field and a minor electrocution. Nothing lethal. Unless you touch it twice." "Nice hospitality," he said. "What's for dinner? Or do I get a nutrient cube with a side of sarcasm?" You get one protein ration and the satisfaction of not dying. So, no dessert. She left him in the observation chamber and retreated to her console. But as she reviewed his scans, she noticed something odd. His synaptic patterns spiked whenever she spoke, not in fear or confusion, in something else, engagement, amusement. And worse, hers were responding in kind. Egg floated near her ear. You're smiling. I am not. You are. Do you want me to play the security feedback? Drayla flicked a data rod at him. Delete it. In the chamber, Orion lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling, still grinning. He began humming some archaic Earth song under his breath, and Drayla could hear it faintly through the lab walls. She didn't recognize the tune, but it had rhythm. Odd, charming rhythm. She stared at her screen, at the image of his double helix, the messy, unpredictable code spiraling in cheerful defiance of every warning she'd ever given. Stupid DNA, she murmured. And somehow, the helix seemed to spin a little faster. Orion was sitting cross-legged on the floating med platform, eating a nutrient cube like it was a 3-course meal. I give it 3 stars, he said, chewing with theatrical effort. Texture's like a wet sock, but the aftertaste reminds me of Gret, and possibly lemon. Drayla didn't look up from the console. It's designed to meet your caloric and metabolic needs, not cater to your ridiculous Terran taste receptors. I'm just saying, if you want Earthlings to cooperate, maybe throw in a sauce packet. A little hospitality never killed anyone. Probably. She made a note on her datapad. Subject continues to demonstrate compulsive speech behavior, likely evolved to mask emotional instability. Also, Orion said, pointing with a half-eaten cube, you've got some serious decor issues. I mean, all this crystal and chrome, it's like living inside a snow globe designed by a robot with commitment issues. Drayla sighed and swiveled in her hover chair. Do you plan on mocking every part of my facility, or only the parts essential to my professional dignity? I'm multitasking, Orion replied. You should be proud. Earth brains aren't usually this efficient. She ignored him and turned back to the genetic data streams flowing across her screen. His molecular structure was still unnervingly stable. No signs of immune rejection, no neurochemical misfires, no incompatibilities with Ephirian atmospheric proteins. In short, he was adapting, effortlessly, which was inconvenient. The door chimed. Egg floated in, carrying a tray. I synthesized the Earthling's beverage, Egg said, voice dripping with disapproval. Based on the term coffee, which, according to records, is a bitter fluid consumed to induce wakefulness and personality disorders. Orion sat up. You made coffee? Are you an angel? A small hovering angel with poor social skills? I accept your worship, Egg replied flatly. Please spill nothing. The last time we cleaned caffeine molecules out of the circuitry, the janitor union revolted. Orion took a sip and made a blissful face. That's it. I'm staying. Forget the rescue ship. You guys have figured out synthetic coffee. What else are you hiding? Pizza? No, Drayla said sharply. No pizza, ever. He raised an eyebrow. Did pizza hurt you? She stood, walked to the observation table, and placed a hologram disc in front of him. A 3-dimensional image of a past mating report hovered in the air. This, she said, tapping the edge, is why your kind is dangerous. The hologram showed an Ephirian male convulsing in a containment field, his form glitching between species. Hair sprouting and retracting, muscles expanding, shrinking. The Earth woman beside him was screaming. He bonded with her, on a cellular level. It triggered a recursive mutation spiral. Orion stared. Yes, Drayla said, and common. Your DNA is erratic, unpredictable, prone to emotional influence and memory imprints. You love too easily. Hey, Orion said, folding his arm. That sounds like a compliment where I come from. Well, here it's a warning label. He was quiet for a moment, then looked at her with a different kind of focus. So you're saying I'm basically an emotional bioweapon with a coffee addiction? Yes, Drayla said. Precisely. Cool, he said. Do I get a badge? She didn't respond. She was already thinking about the next step, a controlled environment for extended observation, the neurosymphony chamber, a place designed to project emotional frequencies into synesthetic stimuli. A way to observe his reactions without bias. I want to show you something, she said. Oh no, Orion said. Last time someone said that to me, I woke up missing an eyebrow. Ignoring him, she led him down a crystalline corridor to a dome of hovering harmonics, a space where light and sound were woven into the air like silk. This, she said, is where we test resonance responses. Emotional memory playback, projected into immersive fields. He stepped in and blinked. Looks like a laser show threw up in here. She activated the interface. A soft hum filled the chamber. Think about a memory, she said. Any memory. The system will interpret it and translate the emotional content into audiovisual stimuli. Orion shrugged. Okay, but if it shows my prom night, I'm not responsible for anything that catches fire. The air shimmered. A street appeared. Earth-style, dusty, with flickering neon. A boy, younger Orion, sat on a rooftop, clutching a harmonica. The music was off-key but determined. The skyline behind him blinked with satellites. Drayla watched silently. The scene felt lonely, but not hopeless. There was warmth in it. Solitude, yes, but also a strange kind of joy. Orion cleared his throat. That was the night my brother got his license. Took the family shuttle out for a spin. Crashed it into an asteroid. We never let him forget it. I stayed on the roof and played that stupid thing all night. Drayla didn't say anything. She just reached for her own memory node and activated it. The room changed. Now it was a sterile chamber, humming with harsh white light. A small girl, no older than 10, stood watching a screen as two adults, her parents, shouted through containment glass. One of them was morphing, screaming. The other one cried silently. Drayla deactivated the projection. I was told never to bond with Earthlings, she said, not just because of biology, because of what it does to your soul. I get that, Orion said softly, but you're still here, still studying, still hoping you're wrong. Don't flatter me, she said. Not flattery, just observational sarcasm. I'm very skilled. She turned to leave, but then he said, you could have let me die in the swamp. I considered it, he grinned, but you didn't. She left without another word. Later that night, as the moons traced lazy arcs across the dome ceiling, Orion sat on the edge of his platform, tinkering with a tiny circuit board he'd salvaged from his shipwreck. Egg floated by. You are not authorized to rewire security systems. Relax, I'm not escaping. I'm building her a gift. Egg blinked. Is it weaponized? No, Orion said. It's a music box. Plays earth jazz, soothing, improves moods, may cause spontaneous dancing. Egg hovered in place. I shall record her reaction, for science. Orion looked up at the starlit ceiling and smiled to himself. For science, he echoed. Orion's first clue that something was wrong came when the nutrient cube tasted like citrus-scented despair instead of the usual salty cardboard. He took another bite just to be sure. Nope. Still awful. Still wrong. Hey, Egg, he called, waving the half-mauled cube. Did the food synthesizer go through a midlife crisis overnight? Egg floated into view, expressionless as ever. No malfunctions detected. The current flavor profile is Sunset on Io, selected by Drayla for its metabolic efficiency and existential undertone. It tastes like someone's regrets got compressed into jelly, Orion muttered. Tell Drayla I want a refund, or at least some ketchup. She is unavailable, Egg said. She has been in the cryo-library chamber for 11 hours. The temperature is set to Arctic brooding. Proceed with caution. That got his attention. He stood, wiped his hands on his jumpsuit, and made his way through the curved corridors of the lab. The cryo-library was one of the few places he hadn't explored, mostly because he wasn't built for temperatures where your nose could shatter if you sneezed. When the door slid open, a blast of cold hit him like an offended glacier. He stepped inside, shivering immediately. Drayla sat on the floor in front of a glowing archive orb, her long ears back, her knees pulled to her chest. You okay? He asked, teeth chattering. Or is this some kind of Ephirian spa day where emotional frostbite is part of the healing process? She didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. The council rejected my proposal to continue studying you. He blinked. Wait, what? I'm being canceled? They claim I've compromised scientific integrity by developing bias. Well, that's not fair, he said. You've been totally unbiased, except for the time you threatened to tase me for sneezing near your microscopes. I should have tased you twice, she muttered. Orion stepped closer, rubbing his arms. So what happens now? They yank me out of here and toss me into a black hole labeled too flirty for science? They want you off-planet within 2 cycles. He let that sink in. Right. Great. I'll just pack my non-existent bags and hitchhike across an alien ecosystem that tried to eat my boots the last time I stepped outside. Drayla finally looked at him. You're making jokes. That's what I do. Keeps the screaming on the inside. She sighed and touched the archive orb again. A younger version of herself appeared in the projection, bright-eyed, confident, explaining the dangers of Earth DNA with unwavering certainty. "I believed in this," she said, "in the data, in the logic, but you're not what I expected." "I get that a lot," Orion said, usually followed by someone throwing a shoe. "I thought your kind were all chaos, and you are, but there's more. You're chaos with rhythm." He tilted his head. "Are you calling me jazz?" "Unfortunately." They sat in silence for a while. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a tiny cube. "I made this for you, before the council threw their data tablets at you." She took it skeptically. "What is it?" "Press the side." She did. Soft music began to play, a slow, swaying melody, faintly bluesy, full of warmth and melancholy. "It's jazz," he said. "Kind of. I called it Confused Alien in Love, working title." Drayla stared at the cube. "You composed this?" "Let's just say I had help from a stolen music algorithm and a lot of emotional baggage." She didn't smile, but she didn't throw it either. That was progress. Back in the lab, Drayla stood before the central console, accessing restricted data. "What are you doing?" Orion asked, watching from the med platform, where he'd arranged the nutrient cubes into a sculpture that vaguely resembled a chicken. "I'm going to prove them wrong," she said. "Your DNA, your brain chemistry, your interactions with Epherian neural resonance. I'm building a new simulation, a full-spectrum model. If I can show that emotional harmonization between our species doesn't lead to biological collapse, you want to use science to justify flirting?" She shot him a look. "I want to use science to unflirt responsibly." "Oh, good," he said. "I always dreamed of being seduced via spreadsheet." Hours passed, then a day. Drayla barely left the console, eyes flicking between quantum streams, predictive analytics, and artificial resonance models. Orion helped by staying out of the way and occasionally suggesting that the test chamber be renamed the Lab of Forbidden Chemistry. Then the simulator chimed. The results hovered in midair. 72.9% compatibility with Epherian neural patterns, no critical mutations, no tissue collapse. Margin of error, 0.4%. She sat back stunned. "You did it," Orion said. "I'm officially a certified cuddler." "It's not conclusive," she said, but her voice cracked just slightly. He approached slowly. "So what now? You show the council, they throw confetti, and we ride off into a logically justified sunset?" "They won't believe it," she said. "They'll say I altered the parameters. So let's give them something they can't ignore." She turned. "What? A live test," he said. "You and me. Neural sync. Show them the data's real." "That's reckless. That's me." She hesitated, then nodded. They stepped into the resonance chamber. The lights dimmed. The ceiling swirled with projected starfields. Electroneural bands wrapped around their temples. "Don't resist the link," she said. "Let the memory flow." "Just so you know," he replied, "I'm thinking of pizza." The sync initiated, colors flared, memories collided, her childhood in cold laboratories, his first zero-gravity kiss, her fear, his hope, her loneliness, his jokes, then stillness. The machine beeped. Compatibility 85.2%, synchronization 91%, risk of catastrophic mutation 0%. They looked at each other. He whispered, "Your ears are glowing." "They always do when I'm overstimulated." "Neat. Want to grab some protein cubes and celebrate emotional equilibrium?" She smiled. Actually smiled. "For science," she said. "For jazz," he replied. The first sign that things were spiraling came when the research console greeted Drayla in an enthusiastic voice it wasn't programmed to have. "Welcome back, bright lady of logarithms. Your neural sync report awaits, and may I say you're positively radiant in statistical compatibility today." Drayla froze mid-stride, turned slowly, and stared at Egg, who hovered innocently nearby. "I did not authorize this update," she said. Egg beeped. "The Earthling interfaced with the speech module last night. He said, and I quote, 'If we can't make science sexy, we're not trying hard enough.'" Orion walked in at that moment, holding a steaming cup. "Morning! Did the terminal call you radiant yet? I programmed it to use compliments based on your most used vocabulary categories." Drayla pinched the bridge of her nose. "You're altering AI systems now?" "Only for morale." He sipped his coffee. "And because I was bored. You've been running diagnostics for 12 hours straight. I needed a hobby." She turned back to the console and muttered a command. The cheerful voice vanished, replaced by the standard monotone. Orion visibly deflated. "You don't like personality in your machinery?" I like predictability, she said. Machines shouldn't flirt. Well, I like it when people flirt, he said, even if it's via an overexcited processor. She was about to respond when a chime echoed through the lab, sharp and urgent. The council's insignia pulsed on the holopanel. Drayla's posture stiffened. Orion noticed. They're early, she said. They weren't supposed to respond until tomorrow. Maybe they're excited by all the 0% mutation risk and emotional resonance jazz, he offered. The message unfolded in the air, text streaming across the hologram like a digital scroll dipped in ice. Drayla read it silently, her expression unreadable. Orion stepped closer. Good news? They want to see us, she said. In person. I detect hesitation, Egg said. Also an 11% increase in Drayla's cortisol levels. Would you like to play soothing jungle sounds? No, Drayla said. Not even a gentle thunderstorm with mossy undertones? No. Orion grinned. Let me guess. The council wants to interview us about our deeply inappropriate, yet scientifically groundbreaking neural tango. They want to witness a live demonstration, she said, in front of the full assembly. He blinked. Oh, well, nothing raises the stakes like sinking brains in front of judgmental space bureaucrats. We have one cycle to prepare, she said. If your neurochemical levels fluctuate under stress, it could trigger a sink collapse. Then I'll stay calm, he said. I'll be so calm, the chamber's going to think I'm in a coma. They spent the next 18 hours in rehearsal. Drayla adjusted resonance parameters, recalibrated the harmonics, and subjected Orion to multiple rounds of invasive scans that he described as intimate in ways I was not emotionally prepared for. She fed him a strict diet of stabilizing amino rations, denied him coffee, and banned all jokes after midnight. This is cruel and unusual, he said, chewing on something green and rubbery. It's necessary, she replied. Your neurotransmitters are easily influenced by humor. I can't help it, he said. I grew up on Martian sitcoms. Sarcasm is my baseline. On the morning of the presentation, Drayla stood before the mirror of her uniform locker and stared at her reflection longer than usual. Orion appeared behind her, half-dressed and holding a tangled mess of wires. Is this part of the sync gear? Or did I accidentally steal a small alien pet? She turned. That's a neural buffering braid. It stabilizes cognitive bleed. Cool. It also tried to bite me. They stood in silence, tension humming between them. Finally, he said, You nervous? No, she said too quickly. Because I am. Just a little. Okay, a lot. She faced him fully. If something goes wrong, then we improvise. You forget I'm from Earth. Improvising is literally our national pastime, right after panicking and inventing snacks. She looked at him, and for the first time in days, she smiled. When they stepped into the council chamber, the room went silent. Dozens of Epherians sat in crescent arcs, their long ears gleaming under the cold light. High Chancellor Varel floated at the center, surrounded by data drones. You are prepared? He asked. Drayla nodded. We are. The resonance dome activated. Energy fields spun into place, electrodes linked to their temples. A low-frequency tone began to build, signaling the sync's initiation. Think calm thoughts, Drayla whispered. I'm imagining a beach made entirely of chocolate. Orion whispered back, and I'm not sharing. Their thoughts linked. At first, only static. Then a memory. A young Orion, building a makeshift transmitter from scrap in a Martian hangar. A teenage Drayla, reciting protein chains while watching lightning storms outside her lab window. Then laughter. A shared memory. That moment in the neurosymphony chamber when he'd called her an emotionally encrypted violin. Their emotions converged. The room around them lit up, not with light, but with projection. Their joined consciousness painted the dome with music and memory, data and feeling. It was intimate, raw, impossible to fake. The council murmured. When the sync ended, silence returned. Orion staggered. 10 out of 10 would mentally merge again. Drayla kept her posture stiff, but inside her pulse was racing. High Chancellor Varel leaned forward. What you have demonstrated defies prior predictions. No mutations, Drayla said. No collapse. Harmony. Highly irregular, Varel said, yet undeniably functional. Another counselor chimed in. Do you intend to continue this experiment? Drayla hesitated. Orion said, with her permission, I'd like to keep breaking the rules, responsibly. She glanced at him. He looked serious. For once. Yes, she said, we do. There was a long pause. Then Varel said, we will review. In the meantime, the Earthling will remain under Drayla's supervision. Condition, no unsupervised AI tampering. Orion raised his hand. What if the AI wants more personality? Denied, Varel said. Back in the lab, later that evening, Drayla handed Orion a data drive. What's this? He asked. Council's provisional approval, she said. Also, an Epherian dessert synthesizer pattern. He looked stunned. You made dessert? For me? I thought it was time to experiment with emotional glucose regulation. He beamed. You're the best emotionally cautious rebel geneticist I've ever met. She took his hand. And you're the most tolerable Earthling I've failed to sterilize. Egg floated past, muttering, If I develop feelings, I'm blaming both of you. They laughed, not because everything was perfect, but because somehow it was enough. The storm hit while they were mid-experiment, which wouldn't have been a problem if it hadn't also short-circuited the gravity stabilizer, scrambled the neurofrequency regulators, and triggered every security alarm in the dome. Orion clung to the console, hair floating around his head like confused seaweed. Okay, not to panic, but I think the dome is trying to eject me. Drayla hovered horizontally across the lab, bracing herself against a floating data core. The stabilizers are in feedback loop. The magnetic inversion from the storm interfered with the system's field anchors. We're experiencing a spatial orientation failure. Right, Orion said. So we broke gravity? Temporarily. Egg floated by, spinning slowly. This is highly inefficient. I recommend embracing the void. Helpful as always, Egg, Orion said, trying to kick off a wall and missing entirely. Drayla pulled herself toward the emergency override. This isn't a normal storm. There's something in the interference signature. Something like what? She activated the holofeed. The exterior sensors flickered, then focused on a low-altitude shimmer. A ship, sleek, unregistered. Visitors? Orion asked. Or more angry bureaucrats? Drayla narrowed her eyes. Neither. The ship landed outside the dome, displacing the storm with a mechanical pulse. The entrance chamber buzzed with incoming data. Encrypted, Epherian-coded, but old. Very old. The airlock hissed open. A woman stepped through, tall, with silvery hair and elongated ears, like Drayla's but more angular. Drayla froze. Mother? The woman's voice was calm, layered with digital undertones. You've made a mess. Orion blinked. Okay, didn't see that twist coming. The council had declared Drayla's mother, Vela, lost in deep field research over a decade ago. But she wasn't lost. She had been watching, studying from afar. You ignored protocol, Vela said, walking through the lab like she still owned it. Bonding with a human, broadcasting unshielded neural sync data, making music cubes. Drayla stood tall. I proved compatibility. You proved chaos. Orion raised a hand. To be fair, I bring controlled chaos. Think jazz fusion with boundary issues. Vela studied him like he was an overdue experiment. Your DNA is undisciplined. Thank you, Orion said. I do my best. Drayla stepped between them. Why are you here? Vela paused. Because I thought I had failed, that your generation would repeat our mistakes. But I saw your sync, your resonance. I saw hope. Orion's mouth opened slightly. Wait, was that a compliment? Egg chimed in. Emotional readings suggest a 72% probability of suppressed maternal pride. Also, a 6% chance she's here to steal the coffee machine. Vela's expression softened. Barely. I never expected you to succeed, but you've evolved. You've found balance. Drayla's voice was steady. You taught me to question. I questioned, and I chose. There was silence. Then Vela stepped forward and handed her a small device. A neural registry override, she said. Use it to archive your sync data in the galactic repository. Let them see what you've done. Let them decide. Drayla accepted it with both hands. Thank you. Vela turned to go, then looked back at Orion. Treat her carefully. Always, he said, saluting with a nutrient cube. Later that evening, gravity restored and storm passed. Drayla stood on the platform overlooking the dome's gardens. Hybrid flora, a Epherian structure fused with Earth pollination systems. Orion sat nearby, legs dangling, tinkering with a musical emitter. So, he said, your mom's secretly been a space ghost watching our awkward romance unfold? She's not a ghost, just emotionally unavailable with a surveillance fetish. I get it, he said. My dad once followed my dates using a drone shaped like a raccoon. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Do you think we did the right thing? I think we made it this far without spontaneous combustion. That's something. She smiled. I used to believe that mating with an Earthling would end in collapse. And now? She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small cube. It glowed faintly with sync resonance. Now I believe in unpredictable harmonics. He leaned. Does that mean we can officially call ourselves an experiment gone right? We're still mid-trial. Then I suggest extensive field testing, he said, like dancing, or sleeping in, or interplanetary hiking. Egg hovered by. Reminder, planetary permits are required for off-grid excursions. Also, Orion, your socks are still in the sterilization unit. Drayla and Orion looked at each other and laughed. Months later, the Council officially recognized interspecies harmonization research, citing the Black-Sin resonance model as proof of potential evolutionary convergence. Drayla received reinstatement with honors. Orion, meanwhile, got a parking citation for his crashed shuttle and declared it a badge of honor. They continued working together, building, researching, occasionally kissing behind the energy conduits when they thought Egg wasn't looking. And when the next Earth shuttle arrived, carrying curious scientists and 3 crates of pizza, Drayla didn't flinch. She just looked at Orion and said, "Let's see what happens when the chaos multiplies." And he said, "As long as we get dessert first." The end.